Hi everyone. I just thought I'd do another little review of Black Widow, which I saw yesterday. Black Widow got an earlier release in the UK, 2 days ahead of its debut on Disney Plus over here, as well as 2 days ahead of the mostly worldwide release, I think. So was not sure whether, with the current climate and everything like that, I would risk a trip to the cinema, but the prices were pretty good, the distancing looked okay, and decided to take the punt with it. So Black Widow was originally filmed a couple of years ago now, and obviously was delayed by over a year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is set between Captain America: Civil War, which was released in 2016, and Avengers: Infinity War, which was released in 2018. This is kind of the things that Natasha gets up to in between those two movies. Civil War ends with her being on the run, and Infinity War starts with her being very much reunited with Cap and the Falcon and a couple of the other guys. So when Marvel Studios announced the Black Widow solo movie, a lot of people thought it would be kind of like a retroactive origin story, and Scarlett had previously said in a couple of interviews that she didn't want to do that, so they kind of told an original story but also threw back to aspects of her origin, and it amounts to a reasonably compelling movie which explores a few avenues which you really wouldn't expect the MCU to go down. And I'll get to it in a minute, but the movie stars Scarlett Johansson, obviously, as Natasha, Florence Pugh as Yelena, who is kind of Natasha's non-biological sister, David Harbour as as a sort of not father, and Rachel Weisz as a not mother. This family unit really encapsulates the core of the narrative, and you also have the villain of Ray Winston and the masked Taskmaster. I'm not going to go into spoilers in this video, I can do that another time, but that really is the core of like the narrative. At the end of 2016's Captain America: Civil War, Natasha has to go on the run. She gets contacted by a face from the past, which takes her on a storyline where she reunites with the previous family, which I've just mentioned, and they go on a merry adventure from there. And there are throwbacks to Natasha's past, which are done very interestingly. And the movie amounts to a very standard Marvel Studios movie, with it being gone for 2 years, and indeed this has been 2 years since Spider-Man: Far From Home. I've kind of missed that warm bubble of the MCU, and although obviously we've had it back in some capacity this year through the Disney Plus projects, and there's nothing quite like going to the cinema and seeing a Marvel Studios movie with the opening titles, and hanging around in the cinema for the post-credit scene and things like that. So it was nice to it was certainly nice to be back in that bubble. I got a big kick out of just being back in this world with the characters I like. And the movie itself is more than adequate. It's fine. I think we've become so attuned over the years that we can just say most of the MCU is fine, and occasionally and often is exceptional, and every now and then they just come along and they do a movie which is just fine. And I would say Black Widow is a movie which is just fine. It has sprinkles of brilliance and ideas and, like I say, avenues it wants to go down, which are very striking and very I want to say adult for the usual sort of family-driven MCU. But it all culminates in a movie which has some interesting ideas. It's very well acted, occasionally very well written, and ends with the typical sort of Act 3 showdown, special effects extravaganza that one expects nowadays from the MCU. It's not reference quality MCU. It's not even probably going to be the best MCU movie this year, but it's very good. It's fine, and I think we're accustomed to saying that most MCU movies are fine. They're a warm hug of a movie that you go to the cinema 2 or 3 times a year to get, and you're happy, and you come out, and it's cool, and that's all we want. And Black Widow delivered that kind of experience. Where Black Widow surprised me was some of the themes it wanted to discuss, and very much so. Without going into spoilers, again, we can do that another time. This is a spoiler-free look at the movie. It has this narrative that runs beneath the core storyline, that is the exploitation and abuse, really, of these women. And the opening titles, I really wanted to just take a moment to say the opening titles, which is done to a cover of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, which I know some people will roll their eyes at hearing that now. I will say is probably the most striking and somewhat essential and almost emotive introductions they've ever done. And I'm not going to say anything else other than it is just sensationally well done, to the point where I was sat there. And again, not going into too much detail, but as a father of a young child, to see what they've done in these opening titles, which will probably give a little bit of a hint as the direction it goes, I found really affecting in a really good way. And it's at that point, really, that you get the feeling that the movie has so much to say about child exploitation, child soldiers, and things like that, that the muzzle of the PG-13, the fact that the MCU has to, in a sense, be family friendly, for the first time, I think, possibly ever, in the 20 plus movies of the MCU now, the muzzle of the PG-13, I think, actually worked against this film in some ways. I think if it was allowed the scope and range to really go into the directions I feel the writers wanted to, it could have been quite a turning point in terms of what people think the MCU is capable of. As it happens, it's a film that, like I say, is very good. It's very sort of special effects. You know what you're getting. I don't need to go into detail. You know what you're getting when you go to see a Marvel Studios cinematic universe movie. But this was a movie that, with its themes and the things it wanted to talk about, was really knocking on the door of some stronger topics. And this is not uncommon for the MCU. Winter Soldier was generally considered to be one of the more adult movies. Civil War asked a lot of questions politically with these characters, and but it's all very surface with the MCU. This was one of the first times, and I say this in a really good way, that the series felt like it really wanted to open a door to explore some very, very dark themes, and the PG-13 muzzle really, really has held this movie back in some capacity. It's violent, but it's not too violent. It's just for the first time I felt there was a detriment within this movie, and that really does hold it back, and in its place just relies the usual overblown CGI sequences, people falling from the sky, explosions, helicopters, machine gun, and that's all fine. It's what you go to the movies for. But I just felt like certainly what the first act was setting up, where it wanted to go, what it wanted to say, they kind of had to abandon that in the name of spectacle. And it's not a deal breaker, because you don't honestly expect the MCU to go to those avenues, so those dark corners of humanity and things like that. But it's just interesting to see them knocking on the door of it the first time. With regards to the movie itself, it's entertaining. It's not terribly funny. They really go for some humour sometimes, and I think the tone, again, with the themes and what they want to explore, I don't think the tone certainly helped, because at times it's playing for laughs when the things it's playing for laughs with is generally like I've said, the exploitation, the abuse of women. And though they don't necessarily make light of that, they make jokes around it. It's like I say, it's all very surface, but you do get the feeling that a slightly better juggling of tone would have allowed some of the things they're trying to say land and hit harder. So, with all that said, Scarlett Johansson continues to be amazing. I think through her years as Natasha, I think she silenced critics. I think, when she was first signed up, I know there was a lot of doubt as to what she could bring to this franchise. And I think, I like to think that she has silenced critics along the way. David Harbour, Rachel Weisz are just, excellent, because they are excellent. But, it's no surprise, and I know everybody's already said the name as I'm about to say it, but this is Florence Pugh's baton that she's now taking. And its placement, Black Widow's placement, is strange, because this really feels like it's a movie that should have happened years ago. But what they're doing with it, where its place is now, is this is the Scarlet baton pass to Florence. And Florence does not disappoint. And if she's going to be the new Black Widow of the Young Avengers, or whatever direction they turn out to be, and the post-credits scene alludes a little bit to where it's going to go, you couldn't ask for a better actress to play, what would be, a new interpretation of like the kind of character that Black Widow is. Florence is fantastic. I don't think anybody expected her to disappoint. So, without being able to say too much more, the Taskmaster reveal is interesting. I don't think it'll land terribly well with a lot of people, especially if your background is in the comics and you have a certain idea of who you expect or want Taskmaster to be, without blowing the spoilers up. It's not who it is in the comics. Ray Winston's villain, again, he feels somewhat of a victim of the PG-13 muzzle. He is the leader of the Red Room. He's the reason why, in many ways, the modern Black Widow program, as it's depicted in the movie, exists. It's quite a harrowing idea, and again, some of the things particularly tied to that intro that I've talked about mean he as a character should be infinitely more despicable and infinitely more hateable, and it's almost like the movie doesn't allow him to get there. So he ends up being a little bit of a just a stereotype, as opposed to a genuinely harrowing, horrible villain. He's just an MCU bad guy in this. But that's fine, because that's what we expect from the MCU. We expect it to just be fine. So yeah, I'll leave that here. I just wanted to put a few thoughts out there. I've sort of rambled and I've not covered everything I want to, but I'll save that for another time. I would give Black Widow a solid 8 out of 10. It's not exceptional, but it's totally solid, with no real flaws to speak of, and it's very much recommended. Get yourself in the cinema, get yourself seeing it, and if you can only watch it on Disney Plus, then is it necessarily worth the price of a premium pass? If you've got people who can share that payment with you, and you can sit and watch it with a group of friends, absolutely. I don't know whether I'm in a hurry to see it again, so I'm kind of glad I didn't go for the premium pass offer, because certainly in the UK, £20 for a movie that I'm kind of happy to only watch once until it comes actually available as part of the Disney Plus subscription. It would have been a lot. But it's solid. It's entertaining, and more than anything, I'm just happy the MCU's back. The next one, Shang-Chi, I cannot wait for that movie. So that's where I'll leave it now. Black Widow, 8 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching this video. I don't do enough of these. I need to improve the set and everything like that. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time, and if you go to the cinema this weekend, enjoy it, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks, cheers, take care, bye bye.